Texans love the game of football. Down here, the game is big, and it's a brawl. So grab a chair and sit a while, and enjoy the game, Texas style. We are the Texans, the Houston Texans. Big Texas skies, big Texas pride. Go Texans, go! And we'll fight like Texans. Hail to the Toro, the red, white, and blue. Everybody, we are the Texans, the Houston Texans. Big Texas skies, big Texas pride. Go Texans, go! And we'll fight like Texans. Hail to the Toro, the red, white, and blue. The red, white, and blue.
The Houston Texans had a major problem at quarterback a year ago, so they went out this offseason and snagged Brock Osweiler away from the defending Super Bowl champion Denver Broncos with a 6-year deal worth $72 million. And they proceeded by giving him some offensive weapons to add to his arsenal in the draft. But J.J. Watt is returning from back surgery. So what does all of this mean for the future and the fortunes of the Houston Texans in 2016? For some answers to those probing questions about Houston and some other pertinent NFL headlines, I turn to Nick Walters, the former update anchor for 97.5 ESPN in Houston. First of all, Nick, we want to take the opportunity to welcome you to the Two Man Advantage podcast, and we thank you for your time this afternoon.
Absolutely, man, anytime.
So, Nick, when we take a look at what happened with Houston, obviously the biggest offseason headline for them was getting Brock Osweiler into the fold with that 6-year, $72 million deal. Now, he only had 7 starts, so I'm wondering your thoughts on the trajectory of the Texans with Osweiler under center.
So I will say this before I go into my argument, that Osweiler did have about 3.5 years of development with the Broncos and behind Peyton Manning for some time. So I don't think there's going to be any jump in performance from last year to next year. So I do believe that his performance last year should be used as a somewhat accurate sample size. I don't think he'll improve that much from last year, right? So to me, Brock Osweiler is a guy who doesn't really have that many great attributes. Whether it be his athleticism or his arm strength or his accuracy, pocket awareness, scrambling ability, nothing dropped jaws last year, I would say. All franchise quarterbacks usually have that one quality that stands out among the rest of the position, but besides his height of 6'8", I just don't see Osweiler having any of those traits. So congrats, you can see all over your line and you can make some reads, but you need more than that for that position, especially to be a franchise quarterback. So he's had limited starts on the pro and college level. And besides, he had 1 week, week 12 overtime win versus the Patriots, where he really shined under pressure. But other than that, he's played poorly under pressure. And so he hasn't had enough big games, in my mind, to earn that huge contract in any way. And until I see him shine in the spotlight consistently, I don't trust him to do that for the Texans for years to come. Now, maybe he can improve and he'll be better later on. But this year right now, I don't see it because of his lack of experience. So, in another example of that, John Elway, who's an all-time quarterback and a GM of the Denver Broncos, he passed on this guy after 4 years with him. He declined to give him his money, and he let him walk up to the Texans. And then he brought in a trio of quarterbacks in Butt Fumble Mark Sanchez, Paxton Lynch, and now Week 1 starter Trevor Siemian. So Osweiler won 5 games of the 7 that he started, and he's not even convinced. So what does that tell you about Osweiler's talent in Elway's mind? And if you look at Osweiler's outlook, it wasn't already bad enough. Through 9 games last year, his decision-making wasn't very good. So inconsistency was really the name of his game. So you look back, he had 2 games with a quarterback rating over 100, 4 games with a quarterback rating in the 70s. And keep in mind that this was with an elite receiving duo in Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders. So he flashes potential, but so does plenty of backups or even free agents in this league. So, look, there is bright spots in Osweiler's situation, right? He's only 26, and usually a quarterback's prime is toward the end of his 20s. So Osweiler will improve as time goes on. I have no doubt about that. And another factor working in his favor is the fact that he can't get much worse than the quarterbacks of the past of the Texans. I mean, you look at last year, you have Brian Hoyer started 9 games, Ryan Mallett 4, TJ Yates 2, Brandon Wheaton 1. So last time the Texans even saw a real game, Hoyer threw 4 interceptions, fumbled the ball, and somehow made a 15.9 quarterback rating en route to a 30-0 wild card blowout versus the Chiefs. So I think the Texans can accept Osweiler with open arms. I have no problem with that. But you can't expect for him to blow out of the gate and be great this year, even though he had moments. So the Texans do have legitimate weaponry, though. They have Hopkins, they have Will Fuller, who was picked with the 21st overall draft pick, and they still have Jalen Strong, and they have weapons, and they have Lamar Miller from the Dolphins. So I have no doubt that their offense can flourish, but when we're talking about Osweiler's ceiling here, I just don't see him making a Pro Bowl. I think best case scenario, I think he improves on his consistency, and he shows the Texans that he was the right investment for their future. But as my expectations, on the other hand, they're much different. I think that Osweiler will struggle out of the gate, be inconsistent, and then he'll eventually gain form, and he'll be okay, and he'll have his crucial moments, he'll have his valuable in-game snaps, and he'll have his big games. But he'll improve as time goes on, but any hope for him to shred defenses right off the bat, I think it's just an overestimation of his skill last year that he showed, and is ignoring flaws of his game experience. So, yeah.
Moving on, talking about Osweiler, how do you think he'll fit into the system in terms of what Bill O'Brien wants to do? He comes from a West Coast background. He's sort of a quarterback whisperer, right? He's got a track record of working with quarterbacks, what he did with Hackenberg at Penn State, and what he did with Brady while he was in New England. So how do you think he'll fit the system in Houston early on and moving forward?
Yeah, now, like I said, the quarterbacks that O'Brien has had to work with have not been stellar at all. In fact, they've been pretty mediocre, almost all of them, in just ways of pure talent, at least what they showed in the games. So I feel like Paxton Lynch is better than them, and it's giving O'Brien a really good toy to play with here in this offense. And I think that he will fit into that system because, as you said, O'Brien is acclaimed to be this quarterback guru type. So I don't think that's blown out of proportion. I do think that O'Brien has been successful with quarterbacks, and I think that's a good thing for Paxton Lynch, that he's been going into an offense that is different from Kubiak's last year in Denver, right? But I think he can adapt to that because I believe O'Brien is a good coach. And I believe that he can do with Osweiler, maybe not he's not going to go out there and be Brady, obviously. But I do think that he can be put in a good offense that can be used to really make his advantages and his pros instead of his cons really show out.
And moving on to the defensive side, obviously we look at Houston. They have a top 10 defense, but of course J.J. Watt is recovering from back surgery. I know that he's practicing now on a limited basis. But how do you think his return from injury will affect the Texans' defense on the field?
So reports did surface yesterday saying that J.J. Watt did have a legitimate chance to play Week 1 versus the Bears. That's what Bill O'Brien said in an interview. In a press conference, excuse me. So this would be a big surprise for a lot of people earlier on in July with medical timetables and whatnot. But for me, I'm not surprised at all. I mean, you look at J.J. Watt's track record here. I mean, he's played through broken bones, strained muscles, bruises, blood, whatever you can even think of. J.J. Watt's probably played through it. I mean, look at last year. He played last year with what? think 5 torn core muscles. So I don't have any doubt that J.J. Watt is going to step in, whether it's week 1 or week 2. He'll play through the pain if it exists, even, and I think he'll be fine. It's not that's not my concern. I think J.J. Watt's injury will not have a big effect on the season, and I'm very, very glad about that. Now the rest of the defense, I think, is very, very strong. I think, the Houston fans have been salivating at Jadeveon Clowney. Looking at this preseason, he's been bull rushing guys, just tossing 300-pound guys across the field. He's been doing great, and that's a really good relief. Since last year, he only started 9 games. So that's a good thing. And, the rest of the Texans D is looking very strong. Vince Wilfork is still there to, a massive run stopper. Whitney Merciless, he's still, wrecking havoc opposite Clowney. And Jonathan Jones and Kareem Jackson make up a really strong duo of quarterbacks. And now Brian Cushing, he's back at middle linebacker, and he used to be great. And he's been injury prone, but if he can regain form at all and can stay healthy in that middle, I think the Texans have a chance to be not one of the best in the AFC South, but one of the best in the NFL.
And you bring up Clowney, who's obviously had a history of injuries. How concerned do you think the Texans should be about his propensity to get hurt, and do you think he can stay healthy throughout the entirety of the season?
Now, we will see about the health. The health, there's some uncontrollable factors in there. We haven't seen him like J.J. Watt just fighting through injuries like I was talking about. But if he were to stay healthy, and obviously he has been working on it, and he has been in the training room, and he's been working on getting healthier, and I think that Jadeveon Clowney this year is a real shot to prove to people that he was not a bust. Nothing's changed. He still is a physical freak athlete. But if he has his mind right, I think he can do it. I think J.J. Watt being there, and Merciless, I think that he's not going to attract so many double teams. So I feel like he has a great chance this year to really put together some really good games and really change a lot of people's mind about him, where a lot of people have just written him off as a bust already.
Now, when we look at what the Texans did in the draft, obviously it was heavily favored towards their offense and giving Osweiler a shot. I know they got Braxton Miller out of Ohio State and the Fuller from Notre Dame. So I'm wondering, with those additions of Will Fuller and Braxton Miller and Lamar Miller from Miami, I'm wondering your thoughts on how this Houston Texans offense is reshaped and revamped, and how it might look heading into 2016.
All right, great. I'll start off with really the biggest acquisition of the offseason, besides Osweiler in my mind, which would be Lamar Miller. And Lamar Miller is being put into a really good situation, but there are some cons to think about, whereas a lot of people are really thinking he's going to explode onto the scene this year. But first and foremost, the offensive line is becoming a big issue for the Texans. They already lost Nick Martin, who was the second-round pick this year with an ankle surgery. And Greg Mance is supposed to fill that spot, and he's an undrafted free agent from a year ago. So the absence of 2015 starter Ben Jones could really hurt more than previously thought at that center position. Both starting tackles are still sidelined with injuries. Dwayne Brown, which is one of the best tackles in the entire league, he's expected to be out week 1 because he's still recovering from torn quadriceps. And Derek Newton is still out from a slow-healing hamstring strain. So other than that, though, another concern to me is workload. I think that Lamar Miller has been a very efficient back. You look at his stats lately, he's never eclipsed 216 carries, and that was 2014. In 2015, he toted the ball 194 times, so he has averaged a high yards per carry with 4.6 last year and 5.1 in 2014. So he scored 8 touchdowns each. So he's been good. He's been very efficient. And I think everyone's expecting him to come into the Texans offense and they're just going to force feed him the ball. I don't think that's necessarily true. I'm hesitant to believe that the Miami coaches just purposely underutilize talent. Miller has proven talent with his 5.1 yards per carry, like I mentioned, but it could be that Miller just is not the workhorse type for this team. So the Texans drafting touted back Tyler Ervin might be evidence to that they're trying to give Lamar Miller some help in that backfield. So he won't be the complete load, complete workhorse, bell cow back like a lot of people are thinking he's going to be. But regardless, I do think Lamar Miller is a very, very good addition to this offense. But especially after last year, after Arian Foster went out, I mean, you had that stable of running backs with, Alfred Blue, Chris Polk, Jonathan Grimes. I think it's going to be a big improvement. I think he's a great player. But expectations, he's going to be one of the best backs in the entire league, have a chance to really lead the league in rushing. I think the only way that even happens is if Bill O'Brien completely, really commits to this guy and is willing to give him Arian Foster-like level workload. And I'm just not so sure that's going to happen. Now, going on to the other guys. So, Will Fuller and Braxton Miller were drafted this year, to provide further spark to the offense. So Fuller was one of the best receivers in all college for Notre Dame, and although he will be eased into reps, reports say, Fuller should have no problem holding on to the number 2 spot opposite Hopkins. I think he's going to provide a lot of help for Hopkins in this offense, and I think he's going to take away a lot of the double coverage and safety shades that Hopkins got last year. And a lot of the games, Hopkins would be fed 20 targets a game. That's just not healthy for an offense, so I do think that'll help balance this team in a way. Now, Braxton Miller, he was a quarterback for the Ohio State Buckeyes for a while, and then converted to receiver after the emergence of Cardale Jones. And the transition did seem really seamless at times. I think that he really revealed his explosion and his raw skills and his sheer speed in times and stretches during that season. And I think with Jalen Strong still fighting for playing time, I don't think he's going to grab hold onto that number 3 spot and just be that number 3 guy, at least yet. But I do think he's going to be a game breaker type role, that he's going to be in a versatile role in that offense. And I think he's going to be able to make some really big plays in an offense that was lacking some explosion last year.
Now, when we look at Bill O'Brien as the head coach, he obviously has a fire and brimstone type of approach. He's known as an offensive guy, and his first 2 years in Houston, he's got a .563 winning percentage, and they've averaged 9 wins his first 2 years. So I'm wondering, what sort of an identity are you looking for O'Brien as he goes into his 3rd year, and what should be the expectations for Houston moving forward under his leadership?
So, first let me get this out of the way. Bill O'Brien has won 2 seasons in a row, 2 winning seasons, so that's 9-7 each year. So, even though he did lose 30-0 in the playoffs, he's in no way in a hot seat. We'll see what happens this year, but I think the Texans have been good. Now, here's the problem with the Texans in Bill O'Brien's case. A lot of the times, as you've seen with the Texans and the Colts, the AFC South has usually been a cakewalk. Jacksonville hasn't been good for years. Tennessee hasn't been good for a long while. I think these teams in this division are starting to improve a whole lot. And so I think the expectation for O'Brien is that this Texans team at least brings it back to 9-7, because that's an expected, they brought in all these different weapons. I think that at least you can expect is to get back to where you were. But I think it's going to be a lot harder for him to get there. I think he's going to have to really push his team, because this division is, you're not going to walk over these guys anymore. Other times you'd walk into a game with Jacksonville and you think, okay, this is going to be a pretty easy game for the most part, especially if they're at home at Reliant Stadium. But this time, I think every single team in this division, you can make a case that they could win the division. I mean, it's not necessarily one of the best divisions in the league, but I think there's a lot of talent in each team. So I do believe that Bill O'Brien has high expectations as of just getting back to where he was because of all these tools being brought in. But I do think people need to realize that this division is getting more competitive, and Bill O'Brien is going to have to push his team harder to get beyond that hump of that division and actually get back to the top and win the crown like they did last year.
Now, in terms of expectations for the team, where do you see the Texans finishing this year? Do you think they'll finally win a playoff game under O'Brien? And what is their ceiling, in your opinion?
Now, I do believe this would go back to the division because Andrew Luck is coming back. Titans have DeMarco Murray. Jacksonville has all these guys, Blake Bortles, and they got Allen Robinson. I think that they are going to lose more games in the division than they have in the past. So because of that, I'm not necessarily thinking that this team is going to be worse than it was before. But because the competition is getting higher, I don't think they're going to reach that 9-7 point again. I think they can get to 8-8, and 9-7 would be good, and that might be able to get them the division crown and actually get them into a wild card game. But I have lower expectations for this Texans team, even though their defense is very stout, and I believe that it's going to be one of the league's best. I, in my opinion, do not believe that that Brock Osweiler is going to be able to step in his first year and just blow up like people are expecting. The same goes for Lamar Miller. Now, if one of them or even both of them do, then the Texans have an awesome shot of getting into the playoffs and even going far. But I think that the Texans should realize that because it's their first year in that system, Brock Osweiler, Lamar Miller, Will Fuller, Braxton Miller, I think you need to give it some adjustment time. And it might have some struggling coming out of the gate this year, but going into next year, you might be looking at a team that can compete with the rest of the AFC if Osweiler has it all figured out.
And what are some other NFL headlines that you'll be keeping an eye on that have sort of developed during the course of the offseason?
All right, so let's ignore the Kaepernick debacle for now because that's just craziness. So I will say that the greatest headline I have right now that I'm really excited about is the Dallas Cowboys. And, of course, the Dallas Cowboys attracts headlines all the time, so that shouldn't be any surprise. But Dak Prescott, can he replace Romo, and can he keep Dallas afloat early on in the season until Romo gets back? And for that matter, when Romo does get back, how will he perform, and will he even be able to stay healthy? And then we got one of the most hyped-up rookies of all time in Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, that's a human storyline right there. And so will he be fed an enormous workload? Will he be the bell cow back immediately? Or will he be more of a committee back with Alfred Morris, Jared McFadden, taking some heat off him? And will Dez regain form? I mean, there's so many question marks with this Dallas Cowboys team and even their defense that I think is going to be one of the funnest teams in the entire league to watch. Next, and speaking of a young quarterback filling in for a veteran, also the Patriots. And Jimmy Garoppolo filling in for Tom Brady after his 4-game Deflategate suspension. So the pressure is going to be on for Jimmy G. And I think the Patriots fan base is really going to get to see how this post-Brady era looks with their knight in shining armor and on the field for 4 quarters. I think it's going to be very entertaining to see Jimmy Garoppolo fighting it out versus the Cardinals, Dolphins, Texans, and the Bills. And with Brady's career coming to its twilight stage, it will be interesting to see if Belichick has the quarterback position, which is the biggest piece of the entire puzzle in football, figured out to have the Pats maintain their status among the AFC's best. And also, I think the third storyline that I think is going to have everyone talking, and it has me most excited, is the Los Angeles Rams. And you don't have to go any farther than the name itself to explain why you'd be excited. I mean, LA gets their city back, or LA getting their team back, that is. And I think that a lot of people in Los Angeles are very, very excited to see how this team is going to perform and how Todd Gurley, Jared Goff, and company are going to fare against the rest of this NFC West. And I think it's going to be really exciting to see this city really revolve around this team for a while and see how that process is of going back into LA and have that team being there again. And frankly, after losing all those pieces, I don't think the Rams are going to be very good. On defense, I think they're going to suffer a little, especially compared to last year with the free agency losses they did have. But it's Los Angeles, and so the spotlight is going to be very bright in the Coliseum, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Now, I have a couple of follow-ups for you in terms of your headlines, starting with the Cowboys. Now, Romo obviously has had issues with his back. So do you think his career is over because, he's getting older? And do you think that the Cowboys will see diminished returns when he comes back? And on Elliott, he certainly put the pressure on himself to produce right away, and certainly on that stage, you're expected to do that. So do you think that the Cowboys have sort of found the fountain of youth after Romo and Witten ride off into the sunset?
So with Romo, the thing I think with Romo is a lot of people think that he is so injury prone now. Now, he may be injury prone. I have no doubt about that. But I do think a lot of it has to do with his play through his career, him being able to scramble out of these pressured situations and make a play out of nothing and really risking his body. I think now, all of a sudden, since he's older, I think now he's going to be injured a lot. And he's going to have these back injuries like we've been seeing this year and last. So I think when he comes back, I think he will be a different quarterback in the fact that he's going to stay in the pocket and he's not going to want to go out. Now, that does sound bad, but when you have the offensive line that the Cowboys do have, I think that is a good situation. I think you're going to see Elliott getting a lot more of a load to take off the pressure for Romo and to have him relax in the pocket and not put a stress on his body. Now, if Romo were to go down again, we're going to have to see if this Dak Prescott guy has what it takes, actual regular season action. So far, you said that they found, the fountain of youth. I think that he looks amazing. There's no doubt about that. And he's been astonishing in preseason. But being thrown into the fire in a regular season game is much different than the preseason. So we'll see. But Romo will be a different quarterback in my mind. I think he could be able to stay healthy and effective, but just not as the same guy we've seen of years past. Now, with Elliott, I think that Elliott was drafted at the 4th overall pick to be a workhorse. I believe he's going to be put in this situation, and they're thinking he's going to be, maybe not right off the bat, but in time, the next Emmitt Smith, the next part of their trio with Dez and maybe Dak, maybe still Romo, just older, we'll see. But I do think that Elliott is going to be fed the ball 300-plus times behind an offensive line that is going to be remarkable. Barring injuries, of course. And by the end of the year, I do believe that Elliott, if he's given this role, that is, has a possibility to be among the discussion for not just Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year, that is, but because of his sheer, just his stats alone, people will be calling him MVP. I don't think he'll get it, obviously, because he's usually a quarterback, but I think he's going to put up very, very big numbers this year.
And just on the Patriots, Jimmy Garoppolo's contract is up at the end of the year, and obviously Brady wants to play into his 40s, apparently, as he said in the past. So I'm wondering whether you think Belichick will resign or re-up with Garoppolo and use the same system or strategy he's used in the past of getting rid of players past his prime. Certainly because of Brady, it might be a different story. So I'm wondering how you think the quarterback situation in New England will play out.
That's why it's such an interesting story. Going into this season, Garoppolo is going to be going in with a lot of pressure. He is basically going to be interviewing with teams by his play. The fact that if he goes out in that field and he tears teams apart, I don't expect him to do that, of course, because this is his first real stretch to be starting like that in regular season action. Teams will be interested. And I think that either one of two things can happen. Either he's going to put on a show, and a lot of teams are going to be interested, and the Patriots are going to have to make a decision, all right, are we going to pay this guy the money we're going to have to pay him, or let him move on, or are the Patriots going to say, you know what, Tom Brady, are you going to retire or not in the next, say, 3-4 years? And I think if Tom Brady is actually planning on playing as long as possible, the Patriots might not want to pay Garoppolo an excessive amount of money for a backup role. And that's going to be on Brady's shoulders. I agree with what you said in there, Lee, just going off what you said. If Tom Brady wants to play, I have no doubt that Belichick is going to let the guy play. If they traded him off or did whatever they did, with other players in the past, it'd be a riot. It's Tom Brady. Give me a break. So I don't think they're going to be doing that exactly. But based on Garoppolo's performance, it will tell the story of how this next offseason is going to go. Or, in fact, an extension could be given by the Patriots if they're saying, we're going to lock up this guy now, we're going to keep on developing him, and we believe that this guy is the replacement for Brady after his era.
Now, moving on to rookies and sort of other headlines you'll be watching develop throughout the course of the season. Give me 3 rookies to watch and 3 headlines you think will unfold or bold predictions throughout the course of the upcoming season.
Sure. All right. So, obviously, I talked about Ezekiel Elliott. That's the obvious rookie storyline of how he's going to do and breaking all the records and whatnot. But I think one of the most talked about subjects this year could easily be Carson Wentz. With all the hard feelings that the Eagles have for Sam Bradford, I think Bradford's leash is going to be awfully short. And in fact, I don't think it's going to take these fall-apart games for Bradford to hear just an avalanche of boos. I think it's just going to take some minor falters. And if those Eagles aren't on the right track early in the season with new head coach Doug Peterson, I think this franchise is going to feel the heat to put the rookie in. And that's going to be very entertaining to watch, seeing Wentz and Bradford, that entire competition, that entire theme of will the Eagles put him in, will he not? And when Wentz does go in, if he does, how will he perform? Secondly, I think another rookie to really keep your eye on that I think could be very, very big this year and could really make a lot of big games here, I believe, is Sterling Shepard. I think Sterling Shepard is walking into this Giants offense as a number 2 receiver. I think Victor Cruz has been a shell of himself as of late, especially in camp. We've seen that, we've heard that he's not going to be a great player in this offense because he might have not even made the roster if his name wasn't Victor Cruz. I mean, Sterling Shepard is a very crisp route runner that had a lot of experience at Oklahoma. And I think he's going to be walking into a situation in a more of a short pass-heavy, dip-and-dunk system with Eli Manning and company. And I think that he has the potential to have a lot of yards at the end of the season. Thirdly, that is, I do think that Michael Thomas is another great guy to keep your eye on in New Orleans. Marcus Colston is gone now in New Orleans, so Michael Thomas has an enormous opportunity to step into that Saints big slot role and really flourish. I think he could see a lot of red zone targets, and he could have a real rapport with Drew Brees. Everything coming out of that camp is saying that he looks fantastic. So I believe that Michael Thomas has a real chance to really break out this year and have a lot of fun with fantasy football owners. And I think that Saints fans will really be able to see a possible Brandon Cooks-Michael Thomas duo for years to come.
Now, when we look at finally what you're looking for throughout the course of the upcoming year in terms of what may unfold, what do you think we're not talking about now that we'll be talking about midway through the season?
I'm most interested to see if this year is the return of the running back. I think in past years we've seen receivers such as Antonio Brown, Julio Jones, and other big-time receivers take on much larger roles than receivers did before. You see with the receiving yards these people are putting up. I mean, Julio Jones leading the league last year, and that was second all time, with just behind Calvin Johnson. I think you see running back stats really falling behind where they would be, and I think this year that might change. You have many teams that are looking to have true feature backs. And the NFL is starting to see a lot more lethal talent at this position. I think teams are going to be really specially featuring these guys more. When you look at it, you have Ezekiel Elliott, Adrian Peterson, Todd Gurley, David Johnson, a healthy Eddie Lacy and a skinny Eddie Lacy, Le'Veon Bell, Lamar Miller even maybe, Jamal Charles, the list goes on. So I'm excited to see if the pass-happy ways of the NFL takes a little bit of a step back this year, and we see a running back renaissance.
Well, Nick, we appreciate the half hour you've spent with us talking some NFL football here on the Two Man Advantage podcast. It was a lot of fun, buddy, and we look forward to doing it throughout the course of the season.
Thank you very much, Kevin. I appreciate the opportunity, man.